Thank you, Marcia, and thank you all very much for having me. It's always great to be here. Usually when I come up, it's to talk about a Palestinian political prisoner held by Israel. Tonight, to shake things up a little bit, I'm going to talk instead about a Lebanese political prisoner held by France. But his connections to the Palestinian cause are very strong. The struggle against Zionism has always, of course, been first and foremost a Palestinian struggle, but it's also one with significant international and overwhelming Arab support. And George Ibrahim Abdallah is a powerful symbol of that. He's been imprisoned by France since 1984 on charges of participating in actions by the Lebanese armed revolutionary faction against Western imperialism and Israeli occupation in Lebanon. Previously, he fought alongside the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine and was injured during the Israeli invasion of South Lebanon in 1978. In 1984, he was initially arrested by France merely for possession of a stolen passport. That was it. And in fact, he was supposed to be released in 1985 in a prisoner exchange negotiated with the French government. Ultimately, the other prisoners who were due to be freed walked out, but he was still held. It later emerged that the attorney who had represented him during these negotiations had been a spy for the French government who had been feeding them information that was later used for his ultimate conviction. He's been eligible for release since 1999, and in fact, French courts have ordered his parole multiple times, but each time French governments, as well as those in the United States and Israel, have intervened to keep him in prison. At the beginning of this year, it emerged in declassified emails from Hillary Clinton's private email server, the infamous ClintonEmail.com, that she had intervened personally in 2013 as Secretary of State to keep him in prison one day after the French Court of Appeals had ordered his release. And this was far from the first time that the United States has intervened to keep him in prison. 30 years earlier, in 1986, Ronald Reagan intervened in order to block his release, and that was immediately after his initial conviction, if I recall correctly. Currently, we're in the middle of an international week of action to demand his freedom. This was something that actually started with Samidoun's first protest as part of it at the French mission to the United Nations last Friday. Tomorrow, we're going to have our second action as part of it at the French consulate. That's on 5th Avenue between East 74th and East 75th Streets, starting at 4 p.m. I hope some of you will be able to make it. Afterwards, we're going to have another event here. Samidoun has been having weekly protests in support of Palestinian political prisoners, and we're coming up on our first anniversary. We started on October 23rd of last year. And since we've also been discussing the strike by Harvard University dining services workers tonight, I should mention that our normal site, the G4S office on West 44th Street, is, I believe, 2 doors down from the Harvard Club, which is something to keep in mind.